of us passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
News Talk 1240.
It's time for Cowboy Up With Tex. Middle of the week, sun is shining, looking good outside. A little bit of local news here first. The Chattanooga Police Department is conducting an internal investigation after 2 squad cars were caught on camera, apparently drag racing. Well, it seems as though a citizen who was out videotaping was able to, not videotape, taping with his camera phone, was able to catch the 2 cruisers as they lined up next to each other and then took off, apparently drag racing. Well, he sent it over to Channel 3, and Channel 3 took it to the Chattanooga Police Department, where they started an investigation. Well, they have now identified the 2 officers involved, Michael Thomas and Mark Nighthammer, but we haven't gotten any more information yet, as they are still doing a formal investigation. In fact, they say that they have up to 3 months for a report that even at that point could be further investigated. It might even just slowly disappear into the sunset. I mean, that's my question. You know, when officers get into trouble, how often do we actually hear about what happens to them? A lot of times they just get the wet noodle treatment and, you know, bad boy, don't do that no more. Whereas somebody like you or I, if we were caught drag racing, we'd be getting multiple tickets, maybe have to go to a driving school, maybe even get our licenses suspended. And here you have officers who are charged with enforcing the law. That's their whole job, is to know and enforce the law. Because how can you enforce the law if you don't know the law? Yet it seems that we do have a fair number of police officers who do exactly that. They try to enforce things that they don't fully understand, trampling on citizens' rights along the way. Well, under our previous chief of police, something like this would have been swept under the rug. But now that we've had Fred Fletcher as the new police chief, they have been more open. So I'm really hopeful that we do get a final report that tells us not only what happened, but what the final result of it is. After all, what better way to improve the public trust of the police department than to show that the police are subject to the same things that we are? After all, shiny badges do not grant extra rights. Well, going from there, one thing I was talking about a little bit yesterday was about how that a number of people are pushing for a retrial on the gay marriage issue by the Supreme Court. Prominent pro-family figures, including several GOP presidential candidates and thousands of people across the country, have been pressing for an appeal hearing on the U.S. Supreme Court's 5-4 gay marriage ruling, which was handed down June 26th. Well, according to the court's own published rules, they have up to 25 days of a ruling that a party can ask the court for a rehearing of a case on pertinent issues that would merit an appeal. The issue of merit here is that both Judge Elena Kagan and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, both of who ruled for same-sex marriage, were clearly required by federal law to recuse themselves from this case, and not only neglected to do so, refused to do so. How can we trust a ruling when you have biased parties doing the ruling? That means that this case would always have a cloud over it. We have enough of a cloud over the Roe v. Wade ruling from back in the 1970s. And look how divided the country is still on it. But you get a court case like this where not only do you have a significant amount of the population that disagrees with the ruling, but they have a legitimate reason to distrust the ruling. Well, of course, the right of impartial court proceedings is the very basis for the entire American system of justice, from the lowest court all the way up to the Supreme Court. Well, the court's same-sex marriage ruling was announced on June 26th, and there is a 25-day window for further action, means that they have up until July 21st, and today is currently the 15th, so you have slightly under a week for something to take place. Well, of course, like I said, the Supreme Court has an actual rule. It's called Rule 44, whose main purpose of the rule is to bring up pertinent issues that the court may not have considered for the case. It hasn't been often utilized, and to our knowledge, it has never been used for a recusal. But it is definitely a preeminent issue of this case. And right now, there are 4 states that could bring this up. The lead attorney was Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine, but for whatever reason, he has said that he is not going to press for a rehearing. We don't even know why. He refuses to discuss it. That means that it's up to one of the other 3 states' attorney generals to get involved and take the lead. And guess what, folks? One of those states is Tennessee. That means that our very own attorney general could take this forward. Well, what that means is that we as Tennesseans need to press every elected official that we can, but especially the governor and our own attorney general, to move forward with this. So today I called the governor's office, and they referred me to the attorney general's office, and a spokesperson at the Tennessee Attorney General's office said that they have actually set up a special website for people to be able to email the Attorney General's office in regards to this very issue. So this is something that is generating some buzz, but we need to generate even more buzz for this to go forward. What we can do is anybody can go to TNATTYGEN at, oh, wait a minute, AT, I'm trying to read my own writing here. TNATTYGEN at ag.tn.gov. So basically, they're abbreviating Tennessee Attorney General at ag.tn.gov. So again, from the top, that's the letters TNATTYGEN at symbol ag.tn.gov, and tell them, file the motion for a Supreme Court rehearing. that we're keeping an eye on them. We want them to represent us in this case. And I'll say it this way. Even if the court case comes up with the same exact ruling, it's important for this to be done so that there is not a cloud over this case, because all that's going to do is harm this country for decades. We need a clear, unbiased ruling on this case. And right now, we do not have that. All we have is something that's going to tear this country apart. Until Tuesday for us to get this second try with officials in Tennessee and other states like Kentucky, Ohio, and I can't find the other one. And the thing of it is the general arrogance of the majority of the Supreme Court regarding their power to vastly redefine the Constitution. The likelihood of this being reversed is not real good, but filing this motion is still very important. It will officially bring the issue of Kagan's and Ginsburg's failure to recuse themselves in violation of federal law. How can we have people on the Supreme Court that will not follow the law? Right now, it's relatively buried in motions and various news articles, and it will reinforce understanding of the overall illegal nature of this ruling. We have to point it out. If nobody says anything, nobody's going to care. But most importantly, it spotlights the overall illegitimacy of today's Supreme Court. Its overtly unconstitutional approach to shaping our laws. They're supposed to comment upon our laws, not write the laws. A Supreme Court decision is not a law. If anything, once the Supreme Court has said that a law is not legal, it should be sent back to Congress for a rehearing. That's Congress's job. But the Supreme Court has evolved to a point to where they are actually making law themselves, and that is not their job. It's an illegal power grab far and beyond what was intended by the founders. What are some of the results when you get things like this going on where the courts can just take over and do what they want? Well, you have just yesterday, the Little Sisters of the Poor, which is a Catholic religious group for women, a bunch of nuns, who have dedicated their lives to the service of the elderly. They have been operating for more than 100 years in the United States, but the Obama administration has targeted them time and time again to try to force them to provide contraceptive medicines and devices. You know, the pill, condoms, things like that. The Obama administration is trying to force them out of the United States or to give up their principles. You know who else has really been jumping up and down on the Little Sisters of the Poor? They have been banned in both China and Myanmar. Myanmar, down in Southeast Asia, is a totalitarian regime. Of course, the Chinese are a communist regime. Both of them are blatantly against religions of any kind. That's the company that we as a country want to keep? Is China and Myanmar? Really? Well, yesterday, a far-left court forced the Little Sisters of the Poor to participate again in Obama's contraception scheme or face excessive IRS fines. This is even though the U.S. Supreme Court had ruled for the Little Sisters of the Poor last year. Well, wording it slightly differently so they can try to claim that it's a new case. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit ruled that the Little Sisters must comply with the government's Health and Human Services mandate. This mandate forces religious ministries to violate their faith or pay massive penalties. You know who else does that? The Muslims over in the Middle East try to force religious people to violate. You can be a Jew or a Christian if you pay them a fine, an ongoing, never-ending fine. Well, how similar is that to what the U.S. government is trying to do to these poor ladies? And we should not have to make that choice because it violates our nation's commitment to ensuring that people from diverse faiths can freely follow God's calling in their lives. For over 175 years, we have served the neediest in society with love and dignity. All we ask is to be able to continue our religious vocation free from government intrusion. Another statement by Mark, who's senior counsel to the Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty, said, "We're disappointed with today's decision. After Little Sisters of the Poor. It's a national embarrassment that the world's most powerful government insists that instead of providing contraceptions through its own existing exchanges and programs, it must crush the Little Sisters' faith and force them to participate. Untold millions of people have managed to get contraceptives without involving nuns. And there's no reason the government cannot run its programs without hijacking the Little Sisters and their health plan." I mean, that's a good point. Obamacare is supposed to be so great. Planned Parenthood gives away contraceptives left and right. Not that they're not in a little bit of trouble today also. Everywhere you go, you can get condoms. You can get the pill. Anybody that's not getting it is just saying to get it. Feels that they have to force these elderly nuns to provide it also. Really? Who are these idiots in government that are doing this? Somehow they always manage to stay hidden behind big fancy names for departments, but never come out on their own. There again, it just shows that when the courts feel they can do anything they want, they will do anything they want, no matter how absurd it is. And that's why it's so important that we stand up to these people. We have to take action. That's why it's so important for all of us to contact our representatives, whether it's city, county, state, federal. If you know somebody who's in the government, contact them. Well, the first thing they're going to say is, "Well, I'm a state guy. I don't have anything to do with that." Or maybe I'm a county official. I don't have anything to do with that. Look at them and say, "Really? So this doesn't concern you at all? You're not worried about this at all? You're not a citizen of this state and this republic just like I am?" You know, they talk about chain of command, and you always kick it up. That's what we're looking at here, folks, is we need a chain of command for these people to go up. And once everybody in the chain knows that we're watching them, it might change things around here. And that's the important thing. I'm going to give you that website one more time. So if you need to get a pencil or pen or a piece of paper, get it real quick, because here it comes. We need to contact the letters TNATTYGEN at ag.tn.gov. That's for the Tennessee Attorney General at agtn.gov. And we need to tell them, file the motion for a Supreme Court rehearing on the gay marriage ruling. Like I said, even if they come up with the same ruling, it's important for this to be done in the right manner. We'll be back with more after these words.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Arnie Guest Goldsmith, Chattanooga's gold standard in quality, selection, and beautifully handcrafted jewelry. Arnie Guest Goldsmith has 7 jewelers on site and ready to assist you in the design of your one-of-a-kind diamond piece. Arnie Guest Goldsmith, Chattanooga's gold standard in quality, selection, and beautifully handcrafted jewelry. Arnie Guest Goldsmith has 7 jewelers on site and ready to assist you in the design of your one-of-a-kind diamond piece to the perfect, affordable, handcrafted gem. From just $20 silver earrings to your dream elegant work of art to adorn your finger, neck, and wrist, impressing your friends and family, Arnie Guest Goldsmith will ensure that your budget is met. Planning the perfect wedding or a special event? Then let Arnie Guest Goldsmith assist you in choosing or designing the keepsake that will last you a lifetime. All of Arnie Guest Goldsmith repairs and crafting are done in-house, so you can be rest assured that it will meet or exceed your expectations. For over 30 years, Arnie Guest Goldsmith has served Chattanooga with the finest jewelry and services, meeting only the highest quality and standards. So the next time you think of jewelry, custom design, remounting, appraisals, or repairs, remember Arnie Guest Goldsmith. And please visit Arnie Guest Goldsmith at 5090 Adams Road, Hickson. That's 5090 Adams Road, Hickson. Call 875-2390. That's 875-2390. Or go to jewelryfromscratch.com. That's all one word, jewelryfromscratch.com. Jewelryfromscratch.com. Arnie Guest Goldsmith of Chattanooga.
If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life. Mention Hot News Talk Radio and get 10% off. We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas, every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
When my brother and I opened the First Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
And we're back with the second half of Cowboy Up With Tex. Yeah, we're here at Hot News Talk Radio, where you can get not only this show, but other shows like Digital Drive with Russell from 12 to 1 and Nooganomics with David Toulis from 1 to 3 at hotnewstalkradio.com, not to mention 1240 AM. You know, you can also get us on TuneIn Radio. You can get us on YouTube. You can even find us on Twitter. Just look up Hot News Talk Radio. Of course, we've got other people such as Sean Hannity, Don Imus, and Laura Ingram on our show at various points throughout the day. In fact, we'll have a little bit of Sean Hannity coming up directly following this show. Well, I think everybody in the area knows we had some interesting weather last night. And, you know, you keep hearing people talk about, we've got global warming, global cooling, global warming, global cooling. I remember back when I was in high school, back in the 70s, that was the big thing everybody was talking about. Oh, we've got an ice age coming. And then just a few years later on, we were all having to worry about the ice caps melting. Ugh. Well, the fact is that the average global temperature has remained fairly steady for more than 15 years. And this has been causing a little bit of consternation among the Al Gore crowd and the climate change alarmists. And they've been exchanging emails questioning whether the warming has gone and strategizing, well, how can they get their message right in light of the facts? You know, that's been the main problem, has been that a lot of their so-called facts turned out to be not quite as factual as they would have had us thinking, because it turns out a lot of that information was actually falsified. Oh, they wouldn't falsify official government records, would they? Not our government. No. Anyway, well, now there's been a new report out of Europe where they're saying that a new scientific model based on solar cycles has shown that we've got a mini ice age on the way. Oh, I wish they'd hurry up and make up their minds so I know where to buy my retirement house. Jeez. Anyway, well, can we finally get rid of all of this life-destroying climate change and global warming stuff? Well, Mark Morano of Climate Depot, who's a leading expert on the topic, says that actually the global warming movement was never about what was actually happening with the climate. It was never about the science behind the issue. It was always about creating a global system of controlling energy production, consumption, and power. Now that sounds like our government. Well, now a London Daily Mail report says that this latest prediction says the model suggests that solar activity will fall by 60% during the 2030s. 60%? There ain't no way the sun is going to fall 60%, because if it did, we wouldn't have an ice age or even a mini ice age. We'd be frozen. Well, anyway, they're trying to say that in the 2030s, conditions will be right for a mini ice age similar to what we saw from 1645 to 1715. During that period, known as the Maunder Minimum, even the Thames River in London completely froze, and snowfields remained year-round, even at lower elevations. In fact, even back in the late 1700s, remember George Washington crossing the Delaware, having to dodge all those ice chunks? They said that was part of a mini ice age. I got so many different ice ages, it's hard to keep track. Oh, we've got the ice age, we've got a mini ice age, we got a mini ice age. Ugh. Have they ever heard of what's just called weather? Well, anyway, Senator James Inhofe from Oklahoma pointed out that for more than 100 years, journalists have been quoting scientists predicting the destruction of civilization by either runaway heat or a new ice age. Now, that does sound about right. Of course, who gets most of this stuff stirred up? Journalists, so that you'll keep buying their papers or whatever, you know? Over the last century, America's major media has predicted an impending global crisis 4 different times, and each prediction warned entire countries would be wiped out. Low crop yields would mean billions would die. Starting off in 1895, where they claimed it was going to be an imminent ice age. Then in the 1920s, when the Earth's surface had warmed less than half a degree, the media jumped on the new threat, global warming, which, of course, they picked up on because of the Dust Bowl in the center of the United States, because of a drought, which there again was just regional weather. Well, that continued to the late 1950s. Then in 1975, the New York Times blared major cooling, widely considered to be inevitable. And they were talking about the upcoming ice age. Well, most of the people in the United States were going to move to Mexico because we couldn't stand the cold. Never mind, we've got people right now that are living in Wisconsin and Wyoming and Alaska, and you see temperatures there getting down, I mean, like not just below freezing, but below zero. People adapt. Well, in 1981, it was back to global warming, with the Times quoting 7 different government atmospheric scientists who predicted global warming of an unprecedented magnitude. Well, that was 30 years ago. And like I said, for 15 years, we've had no climate change to speak of. But yet you listen to the scientists, and the politicians and the global alarmists. Well, okay, maybe it's not global warming or global cooling. It's just climate change. The thing of it is that the facts don't matter to the activists. The facts have never mattered to the activists. They have an agenda. They don't need no stinking science. Even the European Union Commissioner, Connie Hedegaard, says, let's say that science some decades from now says, we were wrong. It's not about climate. Would it not in any case have been good to do many of the things you have to do in order to combat climate change? Yeah, but the problem is that they're costing people millions of dollars and disrupting thousands and thousands of people's lives. We had an ex-senator, thank goodness he's ex-senator, Tim Worth of Colorado, who said, well, we've got to ride the global warming issue. Even if the theory of global warming is wrong, we will be doing the right things in terms of economic policy and environmental policy. Economic policy? Really? Like I said, they're costing people money. The global warming agenda isn't about science. That's why, despite the facts, America is on the verge of cap and trade, carbon taxes, renewable energy mandates, and even more. And of course, President Obama is right at the very top of this. You know, with his agenda on renewable energy, has been very aggressive, oftentimes at the expense of the U.S. taxpayers. Can you say Solyndra, which cost us $500 million? The government keeps trying to pick all these winners for renewable energy and just keep sucking all of our money out. Even now, the agenda is essentially in place like other government programs, making it nearly impossible to remove. You know, and that's one of the things Obama's even talked about, like with Obamacare. You know, he wants to make it so instituted that later on it'll be almost impossible to change it. And a lot of this stuff he's doing by presidential mandate, not by law. The ultimate goal is centralized planning. And they're doing it all under the banner of global warming, even though large numbers of experts have predicted just the opposite. Well, what are we going to do? I mean, Obama came out recently and said, no challenge poses a greater threat to future generations than climate change. He said this to some military cadets who were graduating. Not ISIS, not a remilitarized Russia, not a warmongering China. The thing that these military people have to be aware of to protect America from is climate change. Even though for 222 months, that's December of 1996, there has been no discernible global warming at all, despite what you hear, despite what you read, because the media has been fully invested in this for over 100 years. And of course, it reached a pinnacle with former Vice President Al Gore, who has made millions of dollars promoting carbon credit exchanges. Remember him saying in 2009, the entire North Polar ice cap during the summer months will be completely gone. It will be completely ice-free within the next 5 to 7 years. Well, that was 20 years ago, wasn't it? No, not 20, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, yeah. You know, in 2006, he had the movie An Inconvenient Truth, which inconveniently didn't come true for him, where he famously predicted increasing temperatures would cause oceans to rise by 20 feet, a claim that many scientists say is utterly without rational basis. One scientist, Art Robinson, has spearheaded the Petition Project, which has gathered the signatures of 31,000 scientists who agree there is no convincing scientific evidence that human release of carbon dioxide, methane, or other greenhouse gases is causing or will cause in the foreseeable future catastrophic heating of the Earth's atmosphere or disruption of the Earth's climate. Moreover, there is substantial scientific evidence that increases in atmospheric carbon dioxide would produce many beneficial effects upon the national plan and our animal environments of the earth. Because what ends up happening is what do plants ingest to produce oxygen? They ingest carbon dioxide. So if there's more carbon dioxide, like there was back in the time of the dinosaurs, plants grew bigger and produced huge amounts of oxygen, which resulted in larger animals. I mean, if they were going to be doing something to combat climate change, there's many things they could be doing that they're not doing. Instead, they're trying to control us, control what we do, and control where we live. And folks, I'll tell you right now, I don't care how big an SUV you drive, you're not affecting the polar ice caps on Mars, which scientists have noted change just like the polar ice caps here on Earth do. It's solar activity. And that's the one thing that this one study was talking about, the coming mini ice age. They're basing that on solar activity, not man's activities. And there's nothing man can do about the sun. Another way we can show that solar climate change is not necessarily happening the way that the alarmists are saying. Well, 2 recent reports warned that global warming threatens polar bear populations across the world. But today's reality is that they're doing just fine according to the people on the ground where they live. Dr. Michael Taylor, a polar bear expert with more than 30 years of experience who lives in Canada, said they appear to be as abundant and as productive as ever in most populations. He was responding to a recent study by the U.S. Geological Survey, which warned that 1/3 of polar bears could be in danger from global warming by 2025 if nothing is done to curb carbon dioxide emissions. Mike Rung, a USGS researcher, said in a statement, because carbon emissions accumulate over time, there will be a lag, likely on the order of several decades, between mitigation of emissions and meaningful stabilization of sea ice loss. This warning was based upon climate models, not empirical data. In other words, he was taking a guess based on a lot of theory, not on what is actually happening. He said, in essence, it's an expression of their opinion. It's simply their idea of what might happen if the carbon models are correct. And who knows if they're even correct? It's not empirical result. It's not taken from data. It's simply a collection of the people who contributed to this network model. This was a bunch of people that had an agenda. Today, there are significantly more polar bears than there were even 40 years ago, despite the animal having been listed under the Endangered Species Act in 2008 over fears global warming would destroy their habitat. Officials estimates put the total number of bears between 20,000 and 25,000 just in the United States and Canada. But this number is really just a qualified guess, with the actual number being likely higher. And here's the thing. They live in Russia too. We don't even know how many there are in Russia. But yet they're going away. We'll never see them. Our children will never see polar bears again. Well, traditionally, polar bears' biggest enemy was overhunting by humans, not ice or lack of ice. But in the last few decades, international efforts to restrict hunting and trading of polar bear parts have replenished the bear populations. You know, climate has been evolving over a number of years. Bears have been around for hundreds of thousands of years. They've gone through various cycles of climate change, said the Deputy Minister of the Environment in Nunavut, who's Eskimo. But in my lifetime, I have yet to see a declining of polar bears or of climate change. Well, it was only a couple of weeks later that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service released its 5-year plan for polar bears. The underlying theme was that global warming was a major threat to polar bears, even though Canada was saying the exact opposite. Today, polar bears roam the frozen north, but as their sea ice habitat continues to shrink due to Arctic warming, their future in the U.S. and ultimately their continuation as a species is at risk. Well, the report was criticized by various groups who argued that the conservation plan was flawed and an attempt to drive more funding to government programs. Have you ever known a government program that didn't want more money, no matter what it took, no matter what they had to say, no matter what they had to do to get more funding? It says it's still based on the same flawed ecological premise as all previous models. It assumes that sea ice was a naturally stable habitat until human-caused global warming came along. It also uses sleight-of-hand maneuvers to correlate declining summer sea ice and declining polar bear numbers. What the report does is it assures the Fish and Wildlife Service funds over the next 5 years to continue spreading alarm regarding greenhouse gases, to continue their current and planned polar bear subsistence harvest management plans, and make additional plans to deal with polar bear problems that may or may not arise. In other words, they're hedging their bets so they can get more money, even though other nations are saying the exact opposite. Other nations who actually have polar bears living there, like Canada. That's the problem. We have to keep a constant eye on the government. The federal government is all about growing. That's what our original founding fathers warned us about. That's why they were all for the states being at the forefront, with the federal government just basically acting as a referee between the various states. That's why people had rights first, then the states had rights. And in the Constitution, there was only 30 things allocated to Congress. 30 specific things allocated to the Congress. That's why the big change in America came during the Civil War. Prior to the Civil War, the states were primary. That's why the states that seceded did so. They had the right to secede, and they knew it, and that's why they did it. In fact, you had northern newspapers that editorialized in favor of the South's right to secede. Politicians knew that they had a right to secede. But the War of 1816 settled the issue through brute force. It's kind of funny that Abraham Lincoln, in his Gettysburg Address, talked about the soldiers that sacrificed their lives to the cause of self-determination, that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, should not perish from the earth. But in actuality, the Union soldiers actually fought against self-determination in instituting federalism. It was the Confederates who fought for the right of the people to govern themselves and have the right to secede from an overbearing federalist nation. Well, that got settled, didn't it? Well, we're still living with the effects of that. And now the federal government can run roughshod over the U.S. Constitution. Cowboy up, folks. We got to keep on them. We'll be back tomorrow with the Weekend Roundup. See you then.